as a financial advisor for over 20 years, I can share with you one of the biggest challenges that I worked with my clients to help solve is what I call the health paradox. And here's what I mean by that. Wealth is really a combination of three things. And most people just look at, what's your bank account, what's your investment account value. But it's really two other things. And of the three, this one's the easiest. The other one is being wealthy is having money, but it's also having time and it's having wealth. And you need all three to be able to enjoy your wealth. And so oftentimes people that are working hard, they're good at saving, maybe they're sacrificing, they're not taking the time to go to the gym, to work out, to stay healthy. Maybe they have jobs that are super high pressure jobs and it's causing them to have high blood pressure or not eat well and they have high cholesterol, whatever the issue is. Frankly, it's hard to get all three of these, bank account, time, and your health, to come together at a point where you can still enjoy being wealthy. In fact, the World Health Organization says that the average American has a serious health issue at 66.1 years old. That's 13 months after when most people are thinking about retiring. So the health paradox is super important. So what do? Well, one is we invest the time. We just have, as disciplined as we are about saving money, as disciplined as we are about staying the course with our investments when the stock market is scary, we also have to be that disciplined to do what we can to stay healthy. Maybe you cannot go to the gym 3 days a week for an hour, but maybe you could go to the gym 3 days a week for a half hour. Well, you know what? That's better than nothing. Maybe you could go for a walk, you and your spouse, if you're married, when you're having conversations instead of sitting at the kitchen table or on the couch together. Maybe you could go for a walk together, but we really need to do what we can to look at our health and to invest the time and the money in our health. And even if you don't have time to go to the gym, 90% of the health battle, not all of it, I should say probably closer to 70%. 70% of that is won or lost in the kitchen. So thinking about what we're eating, thinking about, many of us use food as a way to relax at the end of the evening, thinking about, are there other ways that we could relax at the end of the evening? So whatever it takes on your end to keep that health up is really important. And if you think I'm wrong about the time and the health side of things, ask one of the richest people in the world, who's Warren Buffett. He's in his 90s, his late 90s, and he's worth $140 billion. Ask him if he'd give you $139 billion of that if you're 55 years old. I bet he would. I bet he'd want to keep $1 billion, but I bet he'd be willing to give you most of that. So I'm a big fan of Warren's. He's been doing what he does for a long time. He's good at what he does, but he's also getting older, and he doesn't have time on his side anymore. And soon, many of us will not have time on our side. So I want you to think about these things before you lose your health, because then it's too late. And that's one of the things I mentioned earlier. So these are 5 reasons, given the health paradox, to be thinking about retiring sooner. And the first one is that most of us have stressful jobs. And even if it doesn't feel stressful because we've been doing it for a long time, it's highly likely, and I hear my clients say this all the time, they didn't realize how much stress they were under until after they left their jobs. And then it was like this big weight has been lifted off of their shoulders. It's the frog in the boiling water. If you plop a frog in boiling water, the frog's going to jump out right away. But if you put the frog in cold water and slowly turn up the heat, the word is, I've never done this, I don't want to do this, but the word is the frog will stay in there. And I think it's the same thing for us after 20, 30, 40 years of a stressful job. We just don't realize that the heat's been being turned up for many, many years for us. Okay, second reason, given that we have to face the health paradox, we'll do what we can on the health side, but one of the biggest things we can do is retire sooner. And a reason to retire sooner is I want you to think about, does it make sense for you to optimize on life as opposed to optimizing on your bank account? You know, if you want to optimize on your bank account, then as a financial advisor, you don't need a financial advisor for this answer. If you work until the day that you die, you're always bringing in a salary. You'll never need to pull on those investments. So if you want to maximize your wealth, work until the day that you die. But most of us want to maximize our life, want to maximize the life experience. When the time comes for us to be in what I call the ambulance moment, you know, when we're driving down the street and we hear the ambulance sirens come, we pull over to the side and the ambulance whizzes by, and many of us, myself included, give a quick thought of well wishes for the person in the back of that ambulance. And I hope that that person's going to be okay. But you know what? Someday that's going to be me in the back of the ambulance. And when I'm on that ride to the hospital, I want to have as few regrets as I can, to feel like, you know, I squeezed all the juice out of this one life that I've been given. To feel like not only did I do that when I was younger, but I also did that during the youth of my senior years, during the middle age of my senior years, and during the senior age of my middle years. So, you know, money is a tool for us to use. In a great book, and I'm going to share a couple books during this video, but a great book to help us think about money being a tool and how to optimize it. It's how to optimize our money so that we maximize our life experiences, our adventures, and our joy in life. The book's called Die with Zero by Bill Perkins. It's got a weird title. I can tell you it's a great book. It's something I've seen as a financial advisor, so much so I was planning to write a book like this. But when I read Bill's book, I thought, you know what? He's covered it. I can't cover that topic that well. So Die with Zero by Bill Perkins. Okay, reason number 3 to retire as soon as you can, given the health paradox, given that we're fighting this battle to stay healthy. If I didn't say it earlier, the World Health Organization tells us that the average American will lose their health at 66.1 years. That's only 13 months past when the average person retires. So given that, rule number 3, point number 3 is it will never feel like we have enough money to retire. It'll always feel like we need more money. And another book that's great that talks about this is The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel, Housel. And Morgan talks about one of the biggest challenges for anybody as they approach retirement, as they've done a good job saving, is to keep those financial goalposts from moving over time. If your goal is to have $1 million, I can promise you 90% plus of people are going to say, well, it'd be nice to have $1.5 million. When you get to 1.5, it'll be nice to have 2. When you get to 2, it'll be nice to have 3. When you get to 3, it'll be nice to have $5 million. And those goalposts will keep moving. And you know what won't keep moving is how much time any of us have here on the planet. So we want to take full advantage of every day that we have. And the purpose of the money is to give us the security and to give us the tool to do the things we want to do and help out both causes and people that we care about. Okay, number 4 is transition is hard. It's the one thing, maybe the only thing harder than staying fit and staying healthy, right? Because you have to eat, you have to go to the gym. One of the only things harder than that are these major life transitions. And going from working to retirement is a huge life transition. So that transition can be daunting, it can be scary, and it can be something that's easy for us to just kick the can down the street, down the road. And unfortunately, the 4 most dangerous words for somebody close to retirement is just one more year, right? I'm just going to work one more year, and it may not seem like a lot. But if you already have your financial resources that you need, that extra year, how many years of healthy active time are you going to have? 10? You know, if you're 64 and you can retire now, how many more years are you going to have? The World Health Organization would say 2. So before you have a major health issue. So that's half of those healthy, carefree years before you have to worry about seeing a cardiologist, seeing a cancer therapist, whatever it is. So it could be one of the most expensive decisions you make from a time standpoint. So be super careful with that. And many people postpone the transition into retirement, frankly, because they're afraid of it. But again, unless we're going to work until we die, we have to transition at some point. Wouldn't you rather, if you're able to, retire at 55 and face that transition, then wait till you're 65 and face that transition if you already have enough money? I think most of us would. And the reality is, the transition into retirement is difficult. It's also on the other side of it, I can tell you, having helped guide hundreds of people through this process, and I should say, none of this is financial advice, I don't know your situation, but having helped other people through that transition, the vast majority of those folks, 80% plus, are delighted that they went through that transition. But there's four phases to the transition, and the middle two phases are hard, right? The first phase is it feels like vacation. It's just very joyful. It's a very happy time. And that lasts for most people 1 to 6 months, sometimes up to a year. And then the next two phases are more challenging. The fourth phase is good, but the next two phases is this feeling of loss, right? You've lost some of your identity that you had at work. You've lost some of your friends at work. You've lost your routine that you used to have, your 9 to 5. And for other people, they've lost maybe some power that they had at work, right? Now they're just a normal person, just like the rest of us, right? So that's the loss phase. After the loss comes the iterating phase, where you're trying different things, trying to find what your next thing is going to be, what your next passion is going to be. And the good news is almost all of us find that. And then we've transitioned into our new life. And that's when people look back and say, I'm really glad that I took this path. Okay, the fifth reason, well, before I get to the fifth reason, a good book for this transition is a book called From Strength to Strength by Arthur Brooks, and it talks about transitions in life and how to successfully navigate those. I love that book. Everybody I've shared it with loves that book too. And the fifth reason is relationships. And in a lot of ways, this is what life's about, right? Our family, our friends, and how much more time are we going to have with those people in our lives? And our kids, our children, and our aging parents, they spell love. Love is a 4-letter word, but it's not spelled L-O-V-E. Love is spelled T-I-M-E. And spending time with people that we love. And unfortunately, that's a very scarce and dwindling resource for us. And just ask yourself, how many more Thanksgivings do you have with your aging parents? How many more summers at the beach do you have with your kids, whether they're young kids or they're young adults? Okay, and I'm going to give you one last bonus before we wrap up, and because I think it's super important, and that is, ask yourself, do you think you're close enough? If you're 80% of the way there, maybe that's good enough. If that means that you can retire in 5 years earlier, maybe it's worth not getting to that final milestone. So, for instance, in my business, we do probabilities that people's money will last longer than they live, right? Their money's going to last for their lifetime. And as a financial advisor, I like to see that be 90%, 95%, 97%. But even if you have an 85% or an 80% likelihood, what that says is 4 times out of 5, everything's going to be fine. And that 1 time out of 5, well, you make some tweaks along the way, right? We're flying in, we're bringing the plane in for approach on our retirement, and you just don't crash that airplane, right? You bring it in and you make tweaks along the way so that if you do find yourself in that 1 out of 5 cases, you make some tweaks along the way. Maybe you have to spend a little bit less, or maybe you take up a part-time job, something like that. But 4 times out of 5, with an 80% likelihood, you're going to be fine and you won't have to make those changes. And in some of those cases, you're likely going to die with more money than what you retired. So are you close enough? Maybe you are. It's all about making good decisions and spending your time wisely, which is why I made this video up here, which are 7 things that I want you to think about stop doing after you're 50 in order to enjoy your journey for when you decide to retire. Thanks for watching this video, and I'll see you in that one. Bye-bye.